My husband leaned close to my ear and whispered words that cut deeper than any blade, assuring me that no one in the crowded venue could hear his cold declaration. He looked into my eyes and announced that our 22 years together were over, because I was nothing more than an absolute embarrassment to his family. Standing outside the lavish estate, where his sister was about to walk down the aisle, I realized security had barred my entry because my name was intentionally left off the official guest list. I had stepped out of the country club foyer, thinking my partner would easily correct the apparent misunderstanding with the security staff, but instead he stepped forward to enforce my exclusion. When I demanded an explanation, he adjusted his designer accessories and admitted his mother refused to let me inside because my presence made everyone uncomfortable. I stared at him in disbelief, remembering how I had spent 2 decades protecting his family while staying completely silent about the truth behind our lifestyle. Looking past my husband, I saw his mother glowing with pride under a massive floral display, completely unaware that I had quietly funded her brand new multi-million-dollar coastal retreat just days prior. Everyone in his social circle believed he was the sole provider. Yet every single asset, tuition payment, and luxury bill had been paid directly through my corporate accounts. I pulled out my mobile device, sent a single brief message confirming I understood his decision, and turned around to walk toward my vehicle without shedding a single tear. Sitting inside my car, I watched the wealthy crowd celebrate while reflecting on the difference between lost love and lost respect. Love can survive difficult arguments, but once respect disappears from a partnership, the entire foundation begins to crumble beyond repair. I knew that if the guests inside learned that I personally paid for the flowers, the catering, and even the bride's European honeymoon, the entire high society event would instantly dissolve into pure chaos and utter humiliation. Instead of reacting with immediate anger, I contacted my longtime legal advisor and requested a complete review of every financial agreement connected to my husband's relatives. I drove aimlessly through the city lights, recalling my grandmother's wisdom about how people reveal their true character when life becomes too comfortable. My advisor called me back within the hour, recognizing that the entire fortune supporting my husband's lifestyle was entirely dependent on my personal signature and legal authorization. Later that evening, I met my legal representative in our downtown office building to begin dismantling the quiet financial support I had provided for over 2 decades. My team reviewed dozens of complex trust agreements, personal guarantees, and property funds that had kept my husband's relatives living in extreme luxury without their knowledge. I instructed my team to immediately halt the final funding transfer for his mother's new estate, ensuring that legal paperwork would finally reflect the truth. We met at a quiet local cafe the following morning to go over the formal financial documents line by line. My husband arrived looking exhausted and overwhelmed, no longer resembling the arrogant man who had banished me from his sister's wedding less than 48 hours earlier. When he demanded to know why his mother's real estate transaction had failed, I presented him with the official records proving that my company had secretly funded every major family expense since 2008. He stared at the endless stacks of cancelled checks, property titles, and business bailout agreements while realizing his entire public reputation was built on a lie. When his mother called his phone in a rage over the cancelled house purchase, I placed her on speaker and calmly explained that my generosity had officially come to an end. She tried to accuse me of being petty, but I reminded her that my personal dignity was no longer available for her family to exploit. News of the stalled real estate transaction quickly circulated through their elite social network, causing panic among his relatives who had spent years treating me like an outsider. His father eventually reached out to me directly, admitting his deep shame after discovering that I had spent 20 years quietly rescuing their family businesses from collapse. For the first time in 2 decades, someone in that household accepted responsibility for taking my sacrifice for granted without ever asking where the money came from. A few weeks later, we signed the final dissolution papers inside a quiet municipal courtroom, ending our long marriage in less than 20 minutes. Standing outside on the courthouse steps, my former partner apologized for treating me like a convenience rather than a human being who deserved real affection. I accepted his apology, stepped into my vehicle, and drove toward the open highway, knowing that while I had lost a marriage, I had finally reclaimed my self-worth.